How you guys doing? In this video here, I'm going to give you guys a little demonstration on how to draw with perspective. So again, we're going to be continuing on with our timeline. And again, we hope to have the drawing skills, at a fairly reasonable state where, of course, we're going to rely on those drawing skills or shading skills to really create a drawing that seems, again, more aesthetically more sound. Very well constructed. As far as the shading, we're going to lean on that shading, again, to make the drawings look a little bit better. But as far as drawing concepts, of course, there's the idea of perspective. Most of the time when we think about perspective, we think about, of course, viewpoints or vantage points. And that is the ideal way to actually think about perspective. Now, when you do think about perspective, there's a lot of distortion. There's a lot of things that seem kind of difficult to kind of explain. But as far as this perspective drawing, we're going to be looking at it through the use of a building. As far as buildings, they have right angles, and there's plenty of them. So we're going to use those right angles to kind of feed into this idea of space by using vanishing points, establishing a horizon, and also, of course, trying to figure out how many vanishing points are we going to need. As far as a vanishing point, it is what it sounds like, and it's a point that seems so distant that everything that kind of moves in that direction seems to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until eventually just seems to vanish. As far as like how do we prove those things, or why do those things happen? Those are very, kind of like, it's very difficult to understand. As far as back in the day, centuries ago, they didn't really understand these concepts. They didn't understand why do things seem to disappear, why do things seem to be smaller, and why do things seem to get larger. They couldn't really prove it. Of course, today in this very technical world, we could prove it with, of course, with numbers and things like that, but that kind of takes the fun out of it. So we're gonna prove it very easily by using vanishing points, and of course we have to establish this idea of horizon. As far as the vanishing point, we have an idea of what that is. As far as the horizon, we know the horizon is, if we're in an open space, the horizon is at very distant place where the earth seems to kind of meet the sky, and it seems like a very fine line. And again, it seems very strange, very bizarre how everything kind of just seems to kind of line up. That's kind of like the right concept. That's the right idea. And when we're describing the horizon, we're going to draw it with a nice fine line as well, using a ruler. But as far as the horizon, it will shift. It will shift depending on how low or how high you actually are within the actual picture frame. When you actually take a photograph, I can pretty much tell where your horizon is, because I will see a line moving straight across the entire image. Some people say, what do you mean a straight across? Well, this is not a very good picture. I mean, the picture printed out kind of dark, but everywhere I look, and when I see these lines moving into space, I can use a ruler and I can pretty much tell how tall this person was. Because I can see, of course, I can see the bricks, but eventually the bricks will start to line up. So somewhere around here, this is, definitely how tall or how high this person was as far as their vantage points. Again, when they were looking out into this open space, and you can kind of tell. As far as the bottom, you can definitely see it right here. You see how this is angling upwards, and of course how this is angling downwards. Somewhere within this space here, you'll start seeing that the lines are not going downwards or upwards. And again, this is pretty much the horizon. So the horizon can be way up high, depending if you're on top of a building, or if you're sitting in a chair, or maybe laying down on the floor. So your horizon will change. And again, you do want to establish that horizon, because everything kind of factors into that. So again, as far as the perspective drawing, we have two concepts. We have the vanishing points and the horizon line. From there, everything will kind of play into one or the other. So as far as, again, I was using basically pictures I printed from online that, of course, are from the school. Most of us have traveled around the school. We maybe have seen these things before. But again, when I'm looking at these lines and how they're moving. As far as the horizon here, it's no longer on the floor level or ground level. You can tell they're up high. So in this case here, you can see this line kind of falling. As far as this line also is somewhat rising. So somewhere around here, this is the horizon. And of course, you're looking down upon everything else. As far as this one here, it definitely seems like it's going on a slope and they're moving upwards. It'd be kind of difficult to find the horizon here because more likely the horizon is way down here. So again, I can show you a lot of pictures, but I'm going to just do a very, very simple drawing on this piece of paper. That doesn't really have to do with the buildings, but again, just so you can get an idea. More likely, some of you guys have done something that deals with horizons and vanishing points and whatnot. But again, if I say this is my horizon, and I'm going to say, well, you can either do 1 point or you can do 2 points. There's also opportunities for 3 points as well. We'll get into that in a little bit. But again, this is my horizon. These are my vanishing points. Within this space here, this is my drawing. So I'm imagining here, this is the end of my paper. I'm working within this space here. And I'm going to say, well, there's an object right here. So what object would that be? Any object with a right angle is the best object to draw with vanishing points. And again, buildings are a really good example of right angles. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw a vertical line. Now, when you look at this vertical line, you say, well, where is that sitting or where is that standing? We say, well, it's kind of floating. And if this is my horizon line, this object that you drew up here is way, way, way up high. So let's try to start using the vanishing points. Now, when you use 2-point perspective, you are responsible for drawing the vertical. Those are the lines that you draw yourself. All the other lines either go to the left or the right. So let's see if this is going to check out. So again, as far as this line here, we're going to pull it a little bit to the right. And say, why are you pulling it to the right? Well, if there's a right side to this object, it has to fall to this side. From here, it goes to this vanishing point. From over here on this side, I'm going to do the same. This goes to the left though. And of course, this is also going to the left too. As far as the verticals, I'm responsible for those. So again, if this is very vertical, I try to make sure that this is very vertical here. As far as this, again, it's another vertical here. I usually try to compare it to the first one that I drew, just to make sure that it fits right. And there you go. As far as this line, you said, where does this one go? You said that something on the left usually goes to the left. Well, not always. In this case here, if I'm drawing this, again, as a cube, as a building, I'm going to have to pull this line no other place but to the right. So I'm going to pull this way. As far as this one here, it's going to go to the left. And here we go. We have a really nice form, a nice cube as a building, but again, it's drawn to 2 vanishing points. And again, it's above my horizon, so it makes a lot of sense that I should be able to see the bottom of this cube. If I was sitting on the other side and below my horizon, of course, this will also go to the vanishing point, This one over here will go to this vanishing point over here. Oops, sorry, a little bit low. So again, this is going to go to this vanishing point. And sometimes I'll just put my pencil on it. That way it'll just kind of hold it. As far as the verticals, I can make this as wide as I would like, but as long as it's very vertical. Sometimes students will kind of start leaning this way or start leaning that way for the verticals. And it kind of really makes it look very sloppy or almost as if it's actually leaning over. As far as this line here, I've already kind of declared that this line will move back this way by creating a corner. See, I've already drawn this corner over here, so this one has to go back to this vanishing point. So there it is. As far as if I want to continue drawing as if these were buildings, you already have some lines established. So I'm going to go, so I'm going to draw another vertical here. Now this line is going to go to the left. This line will go also, of course, to the left. As far as the other vertical, so I don't know where it is. I'm just going to draw it right here, just for kicks. And then from here, this one's already going that way. I'll continue this one going to the right. As far as this one will also go to the right. As far as where is this here, well, I haven't declared it yet, but I'll say right here at the end of the line. So make sure you do it really nice and vertical. As far as this line here, we'll go back to this vanishing point. So again, you can imagine, you can start seeing this idea of a city block. You can imagine how, of course, these look very much like buildings. If there were windows here, so how would you draw a window? Well, how many windows are there? Are there 1, 2, 3, 4? I don't know. There's quite a few. Most buildings have a ton of windows. So let's say, okay, I'll draw a very, very soft line and not a very permanent line. And say along this line here, we'll draw windows. Now here I have a measurement, and I actually can measure them. So I'll say here, 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 and here. But again, just again to give you an idea. I don't want to get too detailed because I still have a long ways to go as far as getting to the actual building itself. But you can kind of see how, of course, the vanishing point is very, very useful for everything. So again, imagine if these were actually windows. I already kind of established where they're at. As far as the next row of windows, it'd probably be about right there. As far as the vertical part, I haven't really said where, but again, if this is my first row of windows and this is the space in between, well, most people would say, well, just kind of add on the same distance. If you were to go from here to here, do the same thing here. But one thing that you're going to have to start seeing is that the spacing in between the windows, here it's already been solved. That it's getting, of course, more narrow as it moves to the right. But the windows, they also have to, of course, become more narrow too. Both, of course, in height, but also in width. The width will be the tricky part. This is something that you'll have to be, of course, looking and making sure that, you're kind of compensating for that. So you're going to have to take a measurement for that. So like if I drew the next window here, I said, well, I think it's too narrow. I think you need to make it just a little bit wider. So again, you can always use a little piece of paper for reference. Something like this. I know it's very, very crude, but it'd be very effective. So again, if you say the first window is this wide, and this is the spacing in between the building, in between the windows, so well, when I move it over, I just need to make sure that it's not here, it's just a little bit less, and then the next one, just a little bit less. So you can do it like that. But you can definitely see how the windows, how doors, or even city streets, if there was a sidewalk here, you do the same thing too. So if there was a sidewalk, it's also, of course, based off the right angle. They're also parallel to the buildings, so that'll work very, very easily as well. So you can see, of course, how the sidewalk will be a little bit thicker here, and then eventually become, one line as it moves into space. As far as if there were divisions, maybe there's a street here and a street here that runs this way. Well, I use this vanishing point, and I run the street going this way. And this is the other side of the street. It runs that way. But you can kind of start seeing how things kind of play inwards and outwards. So again, this is a sample. This is an idea how we use 2 vanishing points. As the idea of the 1 vanishing point is not a difficult thing, but I'm going to use these pictures. So again, I printed these pictures again so we can kind of get an idea as to how would this work. If I took a picture with my phone, could I draw this building using the vanishing point? So I'm going to be stretching out of this image here. And again, the reason why I stretch out is because I really want to see, does this actually work or not? I'm going to use a color pencil so you can actually see it, the contrast versus the actual black and white copy. So before I even draw anything like a horizon or vanishing point, I'm going to see to the test, does this really work or is this all fake? So again, I can definitely see the ground right here. I can see the angle, and I'm trying very, very carefully to line it up. So if this is all correct, this is going to be my right vanishing point. I know you can't see it. I need to drag it over a little bit, sorry. There you go. As far as, again, there, I'm going to move the paper. And on this side here, I'm going to drag this down this way. And as far as this one, I can definitely see the lines moving upwards. So this is going to go this way. So right here, I can see my horizon. The horizon is established. This is at the eye level. It makes a lot of sense. If this is a door, this is a window, this is about the height of the person that took this photograph. As far as the sidewalk, you'll see, wow, look at the sidewalk. Does that work? It does. How about the bottom one? It's moving up very, very steep. Sometimes they don't. It depends on, of course, the people that built it, but usually things do line up very, very well. You know, like this is the other end of the sidewalk, and it moves this way. As far as the rooftop here, you can see how it falls right to the vanishing point. As far as the windows, you'll see how they fall to the vanishing point. Almost all lines, you'll see them running either one way or the other way. The top of the doorway, you know, definitely it does fall on the vanishing point. So right here. So again, hold this there. So how about this? How about, see this here, this is not a right angle. These stairs that kind of lead away, they actually go downwards because they're not on the right angle. So there'll be some things like this angle here for the rooftop. See, this is not a right angle. It just kind of goes down this way. Would I want to do another vanishing point for that? So no, not for just one line. You know, of course, if multiple lines seem to be falling at another vanishing point that you discovered, and if that will help you to solve the riddle, you know, then go for it, you know, if you do see it. But definitely you can see that all the lines are converging either one place or another place. So again, before I even start the drawing, I would like to create this sense of visual proof that, you know, this is going to work out. As to what kind of drawing would I not be able to do in perspective, will be something like this. Some people will say, why can't you draw this one in perspective? Well, there is no illusion of space. There's no illusion of depth. The whole idea of using perspective is how to prove things as they, of course, move inwards or outwards. And that's why we're actually using this idea of perspective, because, again, this is very easy to understand. Because, again, this is the horizontal, this is the vertical. This is a very, very simple shape. Very, very easy to understand. Most people, when they draw buildings, this is what they usually think. They don't think, you know, this, you know, again, this idea of multiple dimensions, this idea of perspective, it throws people off a lot. And people normally don't think in that direction anyways. But again, as far as a building like this, you would not use this for your concept for this new drawing. Because again, it is flat, it is two-dimensional, and it doesn't have the illusion of depth. So again, we'd scrap this one out. We wouldn't need this one. So this would be a bad idea because again, it doesn't go anywhere. As far as this one, people say, this is really cool. You know, I really like this perspective. As soon as you walk closer and closer and closer to a building, the more the illusion of depth starts, of course, to distort, you know, even to the imagination. Like, I don't even know why the building's looking like this. Well, it doesn't look like that. These are supposed to be vertical. But again, the closer you walk to a building that's very, very tall, the more it becomes distorted. So in this case here, you can actually use 3 vanishing points. So you have one for the left and the right, and also one for the top. So let me get a new sheet here. And we'll see if this one works out. So in this case here, I'm going to try to drop this a little bit lower so we can actually be able to see. Now, when I look at this building, I say, are there any curves? You know, this kind of throws me off a little bit. I really don't understand this very, very well, just because it's a little bit dark. But I think everything should work out fine. So as far as these lines here, the closer you get to a building, the steeper it is. So again, the building that you're really looking for as far as targeting is a building that you can definitely, you need to see 2 sides of a building. That is a complete yes. If you only see the front or one side of the building, you more than likely can't do anything with it. There is no sense of illusion of depth. There is no sense of deep space or expanses of space. So that's not going to work very well. You know, I mean, unless there's, again, maybe an inner corridor, maybe a hallway. We haven't done the 1 point yet. In this case here, we'll do the 3 point. Now, as far as, again, to the right, I said right there. You know, all the lines are going to, I know they're going to converge right here. I can see it without even drawing the lines. Over here, there really isn't a whole lot, but again, I do see this one here, this line that's cutting back. This one's the one's going to kind of give it away as to where is it falling. So again, this one's very, very steep, and it falls to this point here. As far as over here, again, this wall has been removed. It'd be nice if it was there, because that would actually tell me which one, where this one's going. But I'd have to use this little point here. This is the corner, or maybe I can use this corner here. But again, more than likely, it's somewhere about right around here. But again, there isn't a lot of structure here. So again, there really aren't very, very many lines. If this wall was intact, I'd be able to see it very easily. But if you see this little line here, this line also is going to this vanishing point over here. So are there any lines? Well, there's some here. Don't forget these here. So again, these will also reinforce to me that this is a vanishing point. So when I move it here like this, that doesn't make a lot of sense. They're lining up really, really well. Again, here, there really isn't a whole lot of things going on for me to actually, utilize this vanishing point over here. But there's a little tiny bit of stuff on this little corner of the building. But over here, being that's blank, there's nothing. Now, as far as the third vanishing point, you say, where is that point? It's up above. So again, being that we're closer to the building, it really has a sense of distortion as it moves up into space. I might not be able to close it because it seems like, again, it's moving upwards and it goes beyond. But I'll draw some of it, at least the part where you can see, and then we'll move it up a little bit higher. But all these lines, again, they're moving upwards. I do try to line them up as best as I can using the ruler. And we'll see where they actually go. So again, when I move this downwards, how far would it actually have to go? So again, it still has not converged yet. I'll converge the last two lines. So this will go to here, and this one, of course, line it up well, and this one will go to there. So this other vanishing point would be up here. So this will be my third vanishing point, and that would solve how to draw this building here. So this one's a little bit more complicated, but it's very, very fun. I like the more vanishing points you have, the more interesting that it's an interesting concept. As far as this one, we took care of this one. As far as this one, we have not. But again, it's the same concept, the same idea. Especially if you have a printout, you can really make sense of it much, much easier than, of course, you're looking at your phone. Because again, the phone is a very, very compressed image, and you would love to be able to draw on the screen. Some of you guys maybe have like a tablet that you can actually transfer the image to. And from there, you can just draw some lines using whatever software that you have will allow you to draw on that JPEG. So as far as here again, so where is the vanishing point? Well, this one here is going to have a vanishing point somewhere around here. Just by looking at these lines, and some people say, well, your horizon, you're talking about your horizon. How can your horizon go in that direction? Well, it all depends on the perspective of the camera. And again, you just have to kind of go with what you have and try to draw the lines on it. And eventually the lines, they'll kind of solve everything for you. So again, as far as these lines here, they're converging here. They're converging here. Even the lines on the floor, you can tell that they're moving upwards. So again, some of these pictures that you take will be very, very complicated. Again, this is more like, again, up higher. And as far as the perspective of the building, it's kind of moving in a very, very strange angle. So again, my job would be, look, where is that vanishing point? This is not a traditional picture. It seems like a very, very complicated image. How would I draw it? So I can't figure out where the horizon is. I really don't know where the vanishing point is. So again, just follow the lines. The lines will kind of give it itself away. So again, this vanishing point here, it exists within the space. As far as where do the other lines go? They don't seem like they're going vertical. Well, if you really want to find them, try to lead away from them, see where they're going. So as far as this here, the lines seem to be converging downwards. So I don't know if I have enough space here, but I'll move this a little bit higher and see how far they go. Let's see if they actually converge. But they're sloping in very, very slowly. So I'm not sure. Let's see if they actually converge. I'll try to find the longest lines. They're going to take a while. You probably have to drag it down quite far to be able to actually figure out where do they actually converge. But I hope this is making sense to you. As far as some of the lines in, like use the two door lines, but you can see how they're kind of moving inwards like this. I probably, some of the lines are kind of short, so you can't really draw a very good line from them. But again, I would have to, if I was trying to be, of course, very, very accurate, I put, of course, another vanishing point way down here. That way I would know where the lines are supposed to cut inwards. But again, that's the way to solve this drawing here. As far as this one here, some people say, well, how do you draw this one? Well, this one here is a good example of one-point perspective. So when we think about one-point perspective, we think of the painting The Last Supper, where Da Vinci used one-point perspective to create a very, very deep pictorial space that within the room itself, within the, the geometry of the room, there's like panels on the walls. There's, of course, details on the ceiling, and they all kind of converge. They all converge right there at the head of Christ. And again, no matter where you look within the composition, you always have a tendency to kind of get pulled in there. So again, it's a very, very nice device. Again, not necessarily just to kind of solve these geometric problems, but of course, any artist can use it to, again, convey this idea of deep space, and also to create a sense of emphasis, especially if you want to kind of pull the attention of the viewer either to the right or to the left. That's something that can be done. As far as this one here, again, it is a little bit dark of a picture. The light's coming this way. So again, we have some really nice shadows here, but unfortunately this side is very, very shaded. But I'm going to be looking for the longest lines, and there's a really nice line here, and I'm going to just pull that line inwards. And I'm going to say somewhere around here, this is where, again, the center of the composition, you can already tell that more than likely it's going to fall right there dead center. So again, I've lined it up here, and I fill here. And so again, it's going to be one vanishing point. And as far as do I need a horizon? No, you don't need to draw a horizon, but this will be your vanishing point where all these lines converge. As far as this here, this is like, again, like that building that I told you that was not very good for drawing because, again, it was just the front. Well, again, this is going to be deeper in space. The walls, this is going to be where you actually converge. As far as here, these are going to be horizontal and these will be vertical. As far as all this here, this is something, of course, it's not a right angle. You're going to have to kind of figure that on your own. So as far as the ground itself, the edges on the bushes, you can tell that they move here. As far as the ground itself, like the sidewalk, does that converge too? Does it converge? Well, this one doesn't converge as well because, again, it's still moving into space. I think this one's very, very close. Again, if I put my pencil right there and I lined up here, well, it does. It does line up perfectly on this side. How about this side? See, does it line up? Does it line up? Does it line up? Yeah, pretty darn close. So, you can definitely see how the lines will converge. So like the top of the windows, these windows here, as far as the rooftop, will the rooftop, fall to the vanishing point? So it does. So again, if you were able to print it or, again, put it in a little tablet, they'll make a world of a difference. So at least you can solve that problem yourself. So again, if you're new to drawing in perspective, it'd be choice to be able to, again, print out a picture. Again, this is something that we'll be drawing. The concept that we will be drawing a building. Either a building that you see two sides, a left and a right. It could be more of this side, less of that side, but as long as you have two sides, that's what we're going for. And as far as, is there another picture here? Yeah, there's still one more. So as far as, again, are you going to use 2? Are you going to use 3? Are you going to use 1? Well, it depends, Sometimes we really don't think about that. We just say, well, I like the building. It's kind of interesting, and so I'm going to work with that. You get to think of it like that too. But again, 2 sides of the building. This one seems kind of difficult because it is very minute, and it seems like definitely like the windows are just kind of floating in space. So this one here, again, the further things are, the more difficult they become. The closer things are, the more you can see them, the easier it is. That's the way it is. So again, the more you can recognize something, the more you can decipher it, and less questions you have. If you ask me to draw that building and say, no, I think that's impossible. So why is it too hard? No, I just can't see it. I have to feed upon information, visual information. And if you give me that information in the smallest bits and you want me to enlarge it, it's just like me, of course, copying a picture from the internet. And I say, I want to draw this picture. But when I try to enlarge it to be able to see the details, it's all pixelated. It's like, what can I do with it? I'm going to have to do my best guess. So as far as here, I can't see really the bottom of the building. So again, I'd have to do my best guess, or so I'm gonna forget that line and I'll use this line here. So I'll reuse that line, run it across. I'll use this line here. That's pretty well defined, and I'll use that one. Here I can't see the top. I can see, of course, the bottom of the windows. I'll try to line that up, but again, they're very, very minute. But everything tells me this is the left vanishing point. As far as the right vanishing point, I'm going to use this rooftop here, push that way. And as far as this one up here, it seems to fall this way. On top of the roof over here, definitely that's very visible. And I'll pull this way. So over here on this side, definitely you can see the vanishing point. So again, as long as I'm able to tell where the vanishing points are, I should be able to work very, very easily. As far as are the verticals vertical here? So yeah, they're pretty vertical. I'm not going to have to worry about a third vanishing point. So again, I'll be responsible for all of these myself. I'm not going to draw these according to any vanishing point. These will be just as vertical as I possibly can make them. So again, these will go straight up. And again, the left and the right will either go to the left or the right vanishing point. As far as one of the things I would like you guys to do also as we progress through this drawing, the drawing itself will take you maybe a good, maybe like a good 35, 40 minutes, to at least get some of it down. But eventually I would like you to put some shading, a little bit of shading here, a little shading there, as if they were cubes, as if they're, of course, maybe a little transitioning here or there. Again, just to kind of get rid of some of the whiteness, starting to create a little bit of mass for the actual drawing. The mass would be, of course, the building, how it seems to kind of take up space, positive space. And as soon as you apply the shading, of course, it separates itself from this white emptiness and starts taking form. As far as could I do bricks? Please. Could I do trees? Please. Anything else to kind of give it life, that definitely would work. But again, this is kind of a difficult assignment to teach everyone within the classroom, especially, of course, because we have to have, so much distance in between each other. Sometimes I'm maybe going too fast. But again, by just using pictures like this, this would be, of course, something that you can already understand. So as long as you can already have this sense of understanding already, there's a sense that I can do this. This doesn't seem very, very difficult. And as far as like the cubes that I drew, it kind of gives you an idea as to how this would work. So again, if I was drawing a building, what would I draw first? So this will be the last part before I cut this. Flip this over. So again, if this was my drawing, let me just do a quick setup here. This is my sheet of paper. Let's draw it very, very, really quick. Now, remember, sometimes those vanishing points can be further out. So what happens, what I usually have the students do is tape the paper to a table, tape it to a board. I give you guys those drawing boards the very first day. I know, of course, they're kind of wonky, but that would be ideal. Because, again, more than likely, the vanishing points are going to stretch off the paper just because it just demands it. The picture you've taken, they don't slope very, very steep. They may slope very, very slowly, and it will take a little bit more time until it actually finds a vanishing point. So just assume that, again,